Throughout the millennia, objects of interest are lost to time. Others fall into myth. Items said to harness the capability of creation or possess the power to destroy entire worlds and everything in between. These are the relics of legend.
The sparkle of the stone is brilliant, an opaque sheen on the surface with a translucent grid that would dance with glitter when held up to the light. Far too large to fit in any ordinary piece of jewelry. It would be silly mounted atop a ring. Most might wonder why someone would have something the size of a river rock attached to the back of their hand. A pendant simply wouldn't do. Not because of the size, no. The size would be fine for a pendant. In fact, even for its size, the stone almost had no weight. No, the size wasn't why a pendant wouldn't be ideal. But because a pendant would hang around your neck, and thus the likelihood of it being covered by some sort of a garment was far too high. That simply would not do for a stone of this nature. It would need a display. It would have to be adorned with attire of status. For this is a showpiece. A crown, embedded and sitting atop a magnificent headpiece, is the only logical choice. The flash of light, acting as a beacon when the light flickers through the stone. Absolutely breathtaking. This was the thought-provoking process that Signet always had when he was looking at new trades he was interested in acquiring. Signet was a tradesman for his tribe. He would travel from town to town with a small convoy of Yule. They would carry his goods that he would use to barter with. Once he had completed his rounds, he would return home with all of the items that were not native to his land. He would put them up in his shop, and more than likely than not, he had something most people would barter for. Even though he would trade for just about anything he felt would turn some kind of a profit, he always had an affinity for jewelry. A bit obsessed, he would spend the cold season making jewelry from items he'd acquired during the trade season. He was very talented and knew he would usually yield a surplus gain when he traded the fine pieces he created. Just then, Signet's attention was jolted away from the conversation he was having with himself. A loud commotion was being had by the officials in the marketplace. They had formed around the trade stand and was arresting the clerk, as well as seizing most of the goods. Before Signet could muster any questions or inquire any information about the stone he was looking at, a guard took it from his grasp. With a thunderous tone, the guard proclaimed,
By the decree of the lords of the jurisdiction, you are hereby obtained. All goods confiscated and all services are to be halted immediately. The charges against the accused are theft, possession of stolen goods, redistribution of stolen property, trespassing, and assault with intent.
Terrified, Signet was frozen in place. As quickly as they had arrived, seemingly out of nowhere, now they were gone. Shaking himself out of the stupor, Signet pushed his way through the crowd, looking around to see where they had gone, or at least in what direction. He overheard onlookers whispering, It's about time they caught him. I can't believe he was here amongst us. How could someone like that be allowed to be here without anyone knowing? But one comment caught his ear. Someone had said, "I heard he survived the Crystal Cave." Signet swiftly made his way over to the old man that had mentioned the Crystal Cave.
Excuse me, what was that you say?
14 passes of the moon had gone by before Signet reached his home. He was exhausted, and his Yule were weary. He had barely stopped long enough for any of them to rest. Having not even taken the time to unpack any of his goods, he at least herded all of them into their stables. He hurried into the house and proceeded to search through the bookshelves. He was persistent in his hunt. He knew exactly what he was looking for. All the while, all he could think about was what he had discussed with that old man. Signet had not even completed his trade route. How could he? For what he thought was just a story or fable could possibly be a real place. He had no proof that Crystal Cave was real, but if what he had learned had any validity, he had to find out. He pushed everything off the table in the center of the room, laying down the paper he had been looking for. As he unrolled the old worn-out parchment, he recognized the design of the old world map, an original map of Haringa. Antum had many continents on it, but Signet lived in Haringa, and being a tradesman, he was very familiar with the trade roads. The only problem was, most of those roads were not on this map. Additionally, this map had a landmass not present in any of his trade maps. A forgotten region, perhaps? Or was it removed for a reason? Nonetheless, that was his destination. Everything lined up. All that he had learned pointed to this one single location. After a long, restless night, Signet had packed his things and was ready to set out towards his destination. By his calculations, and considering he would not be slowed down by his usual convoy, it would only be 3 cycles before he had arrived. His excitement kept his mind occupied most of the time, only occasionally allowing his curiosity to take over. He did wonder how somewhere seemingly so close had never been seen in all of his travels. On the 3rd day, Signet topped the crest of a large hill. He stopped still in his tracks. If it were not seeing it for his own eyes, he would not have believed it. A dark, desolate wasteland, as far as he could see. He was standing atop a ridge that looked to completely encircle the area. As he made his way down the rocky cliffside, an overwhelming and foul odor began to rise. The air was thick, and a fog took the place of the air around him. The light was high in the sky, yet his visibility was only a few paces. It was eerily silent, except for the animalistic screams off in the distance. This place affected all perceptions. How long had he been here? How far had he walked? What exactly was he looking for? Signet suddenly became very aware of the sound beneath his feet. Other than the sound of leather crunching gravel, it was complete silence. No distant sounds, no animals, no wind. With no sense of direction, panic began to set in. Then panic immediately turned into terror when from out of nowhere huge gusts of wind were pushing him around. Dust was blowing everywhere. A thunderous roar pierced through the cloud of death. Signet turned and ran as fast as he could. Unable to see, unable to hear, he did not care. He did not stop until the ground beneath his feet disappeared. as Signet made his way back to his feet. A very different aura surrounded him. Visibility had returned. As he dusted himself off, he gazed at the cavernous opening ahead of him. Venturing forward, the floor and the walls shimmered like the stars in a black sky. But he was not outside. He had found it. He had fallen into Crystal Cave. Sometime between the creation of the old world map of Haringa and the current trade route maps, something special had happened. The now forgotten region had received a gift from the stars. A gift so catastrophic and terrorizing, it was left to be forgotten. The gemstone, now known as calcite, embellished nearly every item inside the old trade store. Many years of quality sales had brought good fortune to Signet. He sat quietly, looking over all the things he had made, happy to sell any of them for the right price. He smiled as he walked over and locked the door. Reaching under the table, he pulled out a large locked storage box. As he opened it, he untied a velvet bag, revealing the only thing that he would never sell: a beautiful ornate crown, and setting atop it was the only calcite stone that emitted its own glow from within, the true gift from the stars that he now called Shadowlight. It was rare that Signet removed it from the case, but when he was planning his trips, it was a must-have when returning to Crystal Cave. Signet did not know his adversary in the fog, but upon retrieving the glowing crystal in the cave, he realized that holding it granted him pure invisibility. This is in fact how he made it out of the cave and safely back home. To wear Shadowlight not only gave Signet a way to best his foe, but also allowed him to continue his search. Because if there is one light in the darkness, could there be another?